Hey YouTube, I'm Jack, and this is Raw Tropical Living. Thanks for joining me today. Hope everybody's ready for a good weekend out there. It is hot, hot, hot here, man. We're into the 90s, full on into summer, and I don't see any relief in sight for 3 or 4 months. Anyhow, today I'm going to talk about 8 years vegan, 8 years sober. Guys, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, I'd appreciate if you go down and hit that subscribe button, then click on the little bell and check send notifications so you'll stay subscribed to the channel. Realized a couple of days ago, just thinking about it, I'm like, oh wow, you just hit another one, another birthday, so to speak. With the drinking and with the veganism thing too. And look, let me start before I even start talking about the drinking thing right now. I get every time I mention my drinking past, or even from older videos I've done, I have people that reach out to me, and it's always kind of a little bit nerve-wracking for me because I'm not the guy to reach out to for that. I didn't do no 12-step program. I'm not in AA. I'm not in any programs. I just stopped. I stopped. Most people aren't going to do that. I label myself, I'm not too worried about the words, but just for description purposes, I've always labeled myself a drunk as more than an alcoholic, because when it was time to quit, I just quit like that. Most people are not going to do that, and I hate it when somebody kind of looks to me and the best I always tell them, I say, look, I don't know your story, but just if you've even got any question that you have a problem with substances, whether it's alcohol, whatever, reach out for some help. Reach out for some help. But I didn't do it like that. So I'm not that guy, that can be like a sponsor, or like I can say, okay, you need to do this or that. Totally different thing. So having said that, the old days. Now, also, too, one more quick little thing to preface. I kind of talk about my drinking at two different times of the year. This is the time, about this time, I don't remember a specific date, I just remember right around the third weekend of June. I, since then, haven't had a drop. But we're going back to 2012, June of 2012. Now in January of 2012, I got real serious into health. I hadn't come to veganism yet, but I stopped drinking for like 2 or 3 months. And then on my health journey, I got into this kick where I was like, oh, well, red wine is good for your heart. So I would have 1 glass of red wine every night. So the explanation just being is even though it was in June when I officially completely quit drinking, not a drop, I never really got drunk again after January. It was just a once a day type thing. So, and also too, when I talk about my drinking, and I've had a lot of time to process the drinking part of it over these last few years, being completely alone here in this small town. I mean, this is almost like living in a small town in another country where you don't even speak the language. I don't have contact with people other than just, going to the store or whatever. So a lot of time to process and go over things. Haven't really figured out why I was such a heavy drinker. None of those traditional things in the past that usually lead to that. Good parents, good upbringing, parents weren't alcoholic, parents didn't drink too much, parents weren't drunks, so I don't know. But when I talk about drinking too, I'm not talking about any of this cutesy type stuff or just regular stuff. I don't know if any of you have ever read Bukowski, but I was a Bukowski type drinker. That movie Barfly, I mean, I drank ugly. And I was when I was coming into my drinking years, even though I started really early, like from about the age of 18 to 22, I weighed anywhere from 220 pounds to 245 pounds. So I was a big boy. I could drink a lot. And that just formed me. And I drank ungodly amounts of booze in college and in decades after college. Even in San Jose. Y'all think of Costa Rica as this cute little place where you go for a vacation and you see the toucans and you see all this fruit and you see all this and that. I could take you to places in San Jose that would scare most of you. You'd be like, what are we doing here? I used to drink in places where you could get like a big 40 for like $1.50, and it was just like, it was rough places. It wasn't dangerous. It was just like I liked gritty. I liked real drinkers. I didn't drink around kids. I didn't do these little cutesy shots just to have fun, the college type stuff. I was a hardcore drinker, and it got me in a lot of problems. I mean, hell, I could do a whole channel just telling you the mishaps and shit I got into. I remember one of the last drinking binges, one of the last times I ever got drunk. I stumbled into a bad area of town where I blacked out. I don't even remember part of it except just a couple of flashes of a particular bar I went in. I woke up the next day with my shoulder just wrecked. I mean, I couldn't move it for like 3 weeks. I blacked out, fallen down somewhere, broken my glasses. The way my face was, I knew I didn't get in a fight. I knew I just fell, but I was crazy, crazy drinker. So, life for me, it's just been real simple. That's why I am how I am, and that's why I'm a little bit rough around the edges sometimes in the way I speak and in the way I do things and in just like my shortness with things. This just kind of is how it is. Best years of my life, the last 8 years, and I'm 56 years old. So I just came to this lifestyle and stopped drinking when I was 48, almost a half century old. And life has definitely been better because, I don't have the blackouts. I had 1 year. I remember one of my peak years when I had about 200 days of blackouts over the course of the year. But no, I've just felt so good ever since. And the veganism, it's just, I think being vegan, I don't know. There's no way to really tell this, but if I hadn't been vegan and I just quit drinking, I think at some point I would have drifted back to the drinking. It would have eased back in. But, once I found this path of health and whatever, I felt good. And, I just enjoy it. I've never been dogmatic. I don't take it all that seriously. And I've just come to find in 8 years of being vegan and about 7 years of doing this channel that I do veganism my way. Very high raw, mostly raw. When I was in Costa Rica, pretty much fully raw. But I don't have labels. I don't like dogma. I don't like gurus. I don't like any of that stuff. I just, I've been eating plants. I've been eating fruits and vegetables, learning a little bit more year by year. Hey, maybe I'm missing this. Maybe I'm missing that. Let's plug this in a little bit. Maybe at some point, the biggest thing when people say, well, they almost try to talk you out what you're doing, and I don't care how anybody else eats. I mean, it works for me, and I do understand, and that it's still in the back of my mind sometime when I hear people talk about how they felt good for so many years and things just happened all of a sudden. Now, I am kind of suspicious that maybe they didn't necessarily pay attention to their nutrition. There were things they weren't getting. And a lot of times when people have gone that way, I'm able to say, well, I think it's because of this, this, and this, and I'm not doing this, this, and this. But I keep it completely simple. I'm not going to nobody is going to talk me into, well, you shouldn't do this, and all of a sudden I'm going to change doing what I'm doing when I feel like I feel. I feel good every day. Now, granted, I didn't come from a place of sickness before I did this lifestyle. I didn't feel bad. Well, I did, but it was relative. A lot of it was just the fact of being either hungover or a little bit drunk all the time. But as far as other things, like I didn't have, I have great digestion now, but I didn't have horrible. It wasn't like I'd all constipated or backed up just because of the way I ate. I digested okay. I didn't get sick all that often. But the one thing, even though I didn't necessarily have any bad digestive issues, any bad stomachache issues or things that cause you trouble with the digestive tract, yeah, there was I didn't understand the connection of how food was necessarily always going to make me feel. And, one day you've got heartburn or indigestion and you're just like, it's just random. You don't even, it's like, okay, how can I avoid this? Or you have a funky stomach. I remember using that term with a lot of buddies of mine in Costa Rica when I was down there, just like, you don't really have this, you don't really have that. It's nothing serious, but it's just kind of a funky stomach. Once I started eating the way I do now, I just wake up, like I say, the digestion's just smooth, like clockwork. I feel good all the time. I've got energy all the time. So the point being is like, I do this for me. This is for me because of how I feel and what I've gotten from it. This isn't from some tale that somebody else has told me. This isn't from what I've seen from other people. This is like, for me, the human scientific experiment and how this stuff has felt, to me. Another thing is, like I say, this was the first time in the last 8 years that my weight, I just maintained weight without even thinking about it. Always before. Now I was never, after I was probably about, once I dropped a lot of the weight, and I wasn't like fat, but I was just more of like a big, thick, burly guy, but I did have a lot of fat on me. Once I lost that initial weight after college, I was never what you would call like fat, obese, over that much overweight. It was just always maybe 20, 30 pounds here and there. And I would, I always had a ceiling. I would get to a certain point, and then I'm like, all right, I'm going to lose this weight. But I had to work at it. And even when I got to a certain point that I liked, I'm like, okay, I like this weight. Always had to be paying attention. Always had to be paying attention. It was going up and down. This is the first, and it's a lifestyle, not a diet, but technically what we eat is a diet. This is the first diet where I didn't have to think about any of that. I can eat all day, every day. I eat as much as I want all the time. In fact, a lot of times, like yesterday, it was so hot here, and I had gone out walking late afternoon to where I just didn't even feel like eating dinner. So I can eat all the time. I eat ice cream every day. I have big smoothies, and the weight's never a problem. If the only problem is thinking like, all right, you got to eat a little bit more today because you got to keep your weight up. But it's just been, listen, it's been the best in some ways. In some ways, it's been the best period of my life. Now, it has been a very isolated life as I've been a vegan. Because when I went vegan in 2012, I was living in San Jose, Costa Rica. I didn't know many. I was a bar person. I always just met people at a bar, picked up chicks at a bar. I drank at a bar. I talked to whoever was at the bar stool in San Jose because I didn't really know that many people there. I knew a few people where I was working. I was writing for sports. I was writing sports for a sports book, a website that was promoting a sports book. And I went to the office like twice a week, and it was just usually pleasantries. It was nice, but I've pretty much been a lot of time alone in the 8 years. So I've had a lot of time to process some of this stuff. That's actually the one health aspect that I've been thinking about a little bit lately. I never thought about this stuff before. In Costa Rica, like I wasn't completely isolated. Once I moved from the city back to the beach, I had my friends down there. But I live by myself. I had roommates sometime, but it was still just like interacting with people maybe a couple of hours, 3 hours at the most per day. The last few years I've realized this is not healthy. It would break most people. If you were not used to isolation, I don't prefer it, but it's not like I'm not sitting around crying all the time, but that's something I'm looking forward to. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I just don't want to jinx it. I've got somebody coming the first week of next month that's supposed to live with me for probably the next year. And that's going to be really good for me. But yeah, the isolation, I've pretty much been on my own since I've been vegan and since I've been sober. And I think about this particular time now where I find myself kind of stuck in a small town due to circumstances. And also, too, when everybody, with this COVID-19, when everybody was, a little bit, it ramps up the anxiety. Everybody's been inside, even more isolated. I look back. If I was in this situation now where I'm kind of, here because of my mom's in the nursing home, not going to go into all of that again, but if I was where I am right now and I had not stopped the drinking, if I'd have come back into this situation, I had not stopped the drinking and I was still eating like I did, I would be a effing mess right now. I'd be in a mess right now. I'd have a bottle of vodka in the freezer all the time. All the time. I guarantee you I'd be drinking a bottle of vodka a day right now. Vodka was always my slow burn, sip-on type thing. Jack Daniels was when you were going to get crazy. If I was drinking a beer, nursing a beer, and having a shot of Jack Daniels on the side, and you saw that a few times, I was going to get crazy. Or in Costa Rica, it was guaro. If anybody out there happens to be watching me that knows Costa Rica, I could drink some guaro. Costa Ricans would look at me when I would go in a bar and I would start drinking it, and they were like, damn, this gringo drinks some guaro there. But I can't say enough though about the last eight years. Just feeling good every day is just a blessing. I'm happy to be here. I don't know if I stopped early enough to undo all the damage. If one day I'll still have to pay the piper, but even if tomorrow it all goes to hell, it's been a good 8 years. So anyhow, really nothing out of this one today other than just rambling. Just wanted to kind of share the 8 years with you. If you like this one, please give me a thumbs up. And have a beautiful weekend, and I'll see you in a couple of days. Peace.